Friday, March 31st, 2017, here on the Patriots Beat podcast. On this episode, we break down the most recent news of the Patriots week, as well as go over some of the draft prospects the Patriots might take at defensive end. With that, we welcome in Justis Mosqueda of Setting the Edge and of NFL 1000 on Bleacher Report to help us break down that position.
This is Larry H. Russell speaking on behalf of the network, thanking you once again for downloading the Patriots Beat podcast here on CLNS Radio, the leading online provider of audio-video coverage for New England professional sports. Download the free CLNS Radio mobile app for your iPhone or Android for immediate and convenient access to all the content available on the CLNS Radio YouTube channel, podcasting network, and clnsradio.com. Now, on to another edition of Patriots Beat. Take it away, Harris.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Patriots Beat podcast. I am your host, Harris Rubenstein. Go find us on Facebook at facebook.com/CLNS fans, and go find us on Twitter at CLNS Radio, and obviously go find yours truly at CLNS_Sportstein. Welcome to the show, everybody. Very happy to be back with you on this episode. We have a very fun show ready and set for you guys this week. We will be going over the Richard Sherman rumors. We will be going over the updates on the Malcolm Butler situation. We will be giving you a couple defensive ends to look out for, and then we welcome in one of my favorite guys in all of Twitter and one of my favorite podcast hosts. His name is Justis Mosqueda. He is the other half of the Setting the Edge podcast, along with Charles McDonald, who we had on last semester. So we are very happy to welcome them on to the show. So moving on very early, we're going to get right into this whole Richard Sherman rumor thing. So there was a rumor going around that teams were interested in trading for Richard Sherman and that the Seahawks were shopping him around just a little bit. However, I didn't really give it much credence. I don't think anyone really did. I don't think anyone assumed that the Seattle Seahawks were ever going to trade Richard Sherman, and we were all correct, and they didn't do it. However, Ian Rappaport reported that, or he tweeted out, quote, "Before the Patriots signed Gilmore, they were among the teams that inquired. Others did as well." Now, if the Patriots got Richard Sherman, they probably wouldn't have paid Stephon Gilmore. And if they didn't pay Stephon Gilmore, they probably would have traded, they probably would have given that money over to Malcolm Butler. Now, this Richard Sherman trade could have been really interesting. Would have been another Revis-esque move where they're just going all in for 1 year or 1 or 2 years, and then trying to rebuild. However, I personally like the Gilmore move better. I think that it was better to sign him than to trade for Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman is obviously really, really good, but he doesn't really fit what the Patriots do on defense. They run a very specific scheme over there in Seattle, and one of the reasons Sherman is so good is because he fits very well into that scheme and can perform up to what they need him to do. I know the Patriots are one of the best teams in the NFL of adapting their systems to adapting their system to players instead of the player adapting the system. However, I think it's better that they ended up with Gilmore. He's a better fit for the defense. And also, Richard Sherman doesn't exactly like the Patriots. He doesn't exactly like any NFL team that isn't the Seattle Seahawks. So I'm totally fine with that trade not happening, though probably would have been pretty fun to see Richard Sherman on the Patriots. Yeah, it would have been pretty fun. All right, so moving on to the most updated news of the week with the Malcolm Butler situation. Turns out that not only is it not going to happen, that we were all silly for thinking that it was going to happen. Sean Payton came out this week and said that he does not foresee the New England Patriots trading he does not see the New Orleans Saints trading the number 11 pick for Malcolm Butler, and that is most likely what it was going to take to get him So that trade is officially off the table unless something crazy happens. We also had Robert Kraft come out this week and say, we don't want to trade him. But it's, hey, you know what? If they wanted to trade him, obviously they could. They could have gotten something cheap for him. But it's very clear that they want him to play on the tender and want to pay him next year. I understand Malcolm Butler being angry. But if they tell him to play a season on the tender and that they'll pay him next season, if you're Malcolm Butler, just use that as a little bit more motivation. Say, all right, let me play for $4 million so I can play for $7 million next year. I really do think the Patriots will give him the I really do think that they would be able to work something out next offseason and avoid what has already been a very tumultuous situation that really neither side really needs or deserves. I think Malcolm Butler's done enough for the team to warrant a new contract. I think the Patriots have enough money to give it to him. It's just a little bit worrying to me that what if this relationship is completely lost? You know, what if it is impossible to what if it's impossible to repair this situation? What if Malcolm Butler doesn't want to play for the Pats anymore, and to a point where if he does get brought back next year, he has a bad season? Obviously, it isn't in his best interest, but I really do believe that sports are as much of a mental game as they are a physical one. And if he's going into this season with a very negative connotation about how he doesn't, he wants to play or he's holding out or something, this, that, and the other, then we're going to obviously have a problem. So we will see what happens with the Malcolm Butler situation as we go on. Obviously, it's probably the most important thing to monitor now from here on to the rest of the offseason. So with that being said, we need to go over some defensive ends, and then we're going to bring in Justis Mosqueda to break down who he thinks would be a good pick for the Patriots to pick up in the later rounds. So we're just going to start off. Excuse me. Wow, I keep burping and yawning today. Bad. So we're going to talk about a couple of guys here who, if the Patriots were back in the first round, they'd be able to pick. I really enjoy bringing on the other more expert people to tell us I like to see the more them to bring up the more deeper insider kind of guys, while I bring up the more bigger name and kind of break down how they would help the Patriots. So that's what we're doing again. So we're going to start with one of my guys who I don't think I could possibly want him to be on the Patriots more, but he's not. He's probably going to be he'll probably be a top 15 to 20 pick, and that is Haason Reddick, the crazy 4.52 guy. I know I keep bringing him up, but he is technically a defensive end. He does play more of a Jamie Collins position, but I'd absolutely love if Haason Reddick was able to play the Patriots. He's an incredible off-the-ball linebacker, great instincts, great playmaker ability. Like I said, he's Jamie Collins 2.0. They're very similar players coming from very similar backgrounds. So I would love Haason Reddick on this team. Another more probably realistic guy is a guy named Derek Barnett, plays for Tennessee. He is a very, very, very good defensive end off the side. SEC, went to Tennessee. Actually ended up with more sacks inside of the SEC than, but he actually had more sacks in the SEC than Myles Garrett. I keep losing my train of thought today. Than Myles Garrett, and by a considerable amount, almost by 10 to 15. So Derek Barnett is definitely a guy that if he drops out of the first round, the Patriots might try to snatch up. But here's another dude. We actually had a report about this last week, and I didn't bring him up. There's a guy for BYU. His name is Harvey Lange. 123 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. He's 6'2", 252. Those stats came from his last 2 years when he switched from running back to defensive end, outside linebacker. And apparently, if he was in the draft last year, apparently the Patriots would have taken him in the first round. So whenever you hear something like that, obviously perks your eyebrows and go, wow, they really like Harvey Lange. But it seems that right now Harvey Lange is a little bit closer to the second, end of the second, earlier third round than anywhere else. So Harvey Lange is a name to look out for. I believe it was SB Nation who reported that he was a big deal. So, I'd love to see Harvey Lange on the team. He's had some injury issues, from college. However, he has still been one of the better players that BYU had on their defense the past couple of years. So definitely keep a lookout for Harvey Lange. Keep a lookout for Derek Barnett. And obviously always keep a lookout for Hassan Reddick. But that's going to be it for me. Let's bring in Justis Mosqueda to actually break down this position that I really don't know too much about. He knows a ton about it. So let's bring him in. Justis Mosqueda. We'll be right back. Hey guys, it's time to talk to you about the boatload of money you can make this week betting at mybookie.ag. If you haven't checked them out, this is the perfect time to get into action because the madness of March is here. Lay down some money and score big on college hoops. Join me and thousands of online players and start betting at mybookie.ag. Are you sick and tired of getting the runaround when you ask for a payout? Come join MyBookie today. I would only recommend a service that's been so good to me and my listeners. That's why I urge you to make your way to MyBookie. You win, they pay fast without any hassles. You're wasting your time betting anywhere else. They even have in-game live betting so you can place a bet after tip-off. That's right. If you join with $100, you'll get an extra $50 bankroll to play with their new feature of with their matching your first deposit with a 50% bonus. Use my promo code PATS50 to activate the offer. Visit MyBookie today or call 844-900-BETS. Play, win, and get paid. Welcome back into Patriots Beat. It's now time for our featured guest segment. This week, we have a very, very interesting guest. This week, we are very happy to welcome in Justis Mosqueda, the other co-host of Setting the Edge with Charles McDonald, also one of the NFL 1000 graders. I believe you do 4-3 defensive ends, correct?
Yeah, I just do defensive ends on the NFC, whatever it is, 3-4, 4-3.
And then obviously one of the best guys to follow. Go follow him at MUSQ, one of the best Twitter follows for anything involving NFL defense out there. Go follow Justis. So, Justis, let's get right into it. The Patriots this year are going through kind of a defensive retrieval with everything that's going on with Malcolm Butler and Stephon Gilmore, and then if you look at their defensive line, again, Chris Long is now gone, as is Jabal Sheard. They need some defensive ends. They only have a pick in the third round. Can you give me a couple guys who you think could fit in with their defense really well?
Down in the third round, I think, if you want to go down like the little whole Trey Flowers road, Arkansas has got a guy, Dietrich Wise, who I think is really similar to him. Not super athletic, but like just hustle, effort, all sorts of stuff like that. He kind of got put in a weird spot because this past year, coming into this year, a lot of people thought he was going to be a top 100 pick, but he ended up getting bumped out for another prospect in this class, Jeremiah Ledbetter. Ledbetter used to play defensive tackle. He got kicked out to end, and then basically Wise came off the bench, but he was still really efficient coming off the bench. The problem is his I guess you'd say his workload dropped down a little bit, but he went down to the Shrine game and he just blew up the Shrine game. Was like the MVP of all that. Just clearly like a man amongst boys, down there. So he's got to keep an eye on. I don't know if Derek Rivers is going to end up sticking there. The kid out of Youngstown State. He set Youngstown State records, coached up by Bo Pelini, who, coach prospects like Randy Gregory, et cetera, at Nebraska. Really, Derek Rivers, he does everything well. He checked every single box, massive production in college, on a winning team, right? All sorts of stuff like that. He plays the run game really well. He plays with his hands above his eyes all the time. A gifted pass rusher, obviously. I mean, you can't get all those sacks without being a half decent pass rusher at least. And then he tested crazy. He tested crazy at the combine. At the Senior Bowl, he was probably the most consistent pass rusher of anyone that I saw. And I just stay and focus on defensive linemen and offensive linemen the entire time. So, that's the funny thing about the Senior Bowl is people will be like, they'll talk about and like write an update on every single player who was at the Senior Bowl. And I'm trying to figure out how the hell they have that many set of eyes. So like I just stick with offensive linemen, defensive linemen, because I'm like, if I miss a rep, I don't know what the hell is going to happen. But people will see one pass rushing rep from a guy and then they'll claim that he had a good week. And I'm like, I must have missed the other 80.
I find it so strange on draft Twitter that most people, I think this kind of started with Josh Norris and Trey Turner a couple of years ago, but every draft person has one guy now. And whenever that one guy goes crazy, they're like, thank you. I knew from the beginning that was all mine.
Yeah. Draft Twitter definitely, they call them like firsters, right? It's the dudes who are like, the firsters, and then they'll claim them. They get really attached to people that they don't know. It's kind of odd. Yeah,
it's a little strange. I'm worried that Charles is going to get like that with Jaleel Johnson, but we're trying to keep him down a little bit.
See, the thing is, we've met Jaleel at least. Like, we have Jaleel's email, all sorts of stuff like that. We got his email when we were down at the Senior Bowl, talked to him a bit. Jaleel Johnson's got an AOL email account, though, so if you want to red flag him for that, like, he's like, Iowa is still in like the 1990s, apparently.
1990s. What AOL accounts? So, moving on a little bit here, the Patriots also in the past couple of years have prioritized pass rushers who not only can do it off of the edge, but can also do it from the interior. And Trey Flowers, like we keep bringing up, is probably the perfect example of that. A guy who might even be a better interior pass rusher than he is off the edge. Is there a guy this year that excels at stuff from the B or C gap rather than right off the edge all the way outside?
I think the guy that you really want to point to probably is DeMarcus Walker. DeMarcus Walker was a guy who some people thought was like a first-round pick. And then he's from Florida State, by the way. And you dig deeper into his film, and there's just no way that he's going to be a consistent pass rusher on the outside. Like, really, if you want to talk about it, like he's probably a 280-pound guy who's a pass rushing specialist. When he was lined up on the edge, Evan Ingram, who after putting on weight this offseason was still like a 230-pound tight end for Ole Miss, he was blocking him 10 yards down the field, like no exaggeration. So he's basically getting blocked by a slot receiver, right, at 280 pounds. That's not good. So you're thinking, okay, if he can't hold up on the edge, he's not going to hold up inside. The problem is he's not athletic enough on the edge to be able to be a 3-down pass rusher. So you're like, okay, well, what do you do? It's like, well, on long and late downs, you're going to be able to shoot through, you're going to be able to shoot through the B gap. And that's totally fine, but that's kind of a role that's really specific, because I think DeMarcus Walker can be totally fine. He could be an interior pass rusher. The only issue is, like, you can't have him on your too deep. Like, he's like, you're going to need some depth up top, like maybe it's like a high, like maybe it's the Trey Flowers guy, right, who can kind of play inside, outside, 3 downs if you need to, who, like, if you have that swing player, that opens up a roster spot, and that's when you could bring in a 3rd down specialist under tackle, right? But DeMarcus Walker for sure is a guy who he thrives in that role. The only problem is he's only good at that role.
Very nice. Sounds like a perfect kind of guy that the Patriots like to go after. He sounds pretty similar to Lawrence Guy, who they just picked up, actually.
Yeah, he's kind of like that. He's a little lighter in the pants, but I think that's a pretty good example.
Lighter in the pants, another fun little thing there. So one more thing before we move on to just your guys in general, just with Patriots guys. Another kind of person that they really like to pick up is someone a little bit more Jamie Collins style, a guy who's a little bit more stand-up but can still rush the passer, a little bit more, I guess, Melvin Ingram-esque or Whitney Merciless-esque. Is there a guy that you think could fit the Patriots that's a little more like that?
Yeah, if we're talking about a mid-round guy, right, because we're not going to be picking in the first round.
Unfortunately, now that number 11 is off the table. Darn it.
Yeah. I think one of the more interesting prospects in this class, just because of how little he's been talked about, is Vince Biegel from Wisconsin. So if you look at Vince Biegel's numbers and TJ Watt's numbers at the combine, they're really not that different. If you look at Vince Biegel's numbers and Clay Matthews' numbers, they're basically a spitting image of each other, which is kind of amazing. Vince Biegel was he very much has the same narrative as Clay Matthews coming out. You know, he comes from a football family. I think his dad's in like the Wisconsin Coaching Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. He was very much like he was like the team captain, all sorts of stuff. Like, you listen to him talk and he talks like a damn quarterback. You know what I mean? He was I have access to College Football Focus's numbers through Bleacher Report. And I can tell you that on a per snap basis, he's a more productive pass rusher than TJ Watt.
Wow.
You watch him on film, and that shows up. Like, he 1,000% translates more as a, on the ball player than TJ Watt does. I think TJ Watt's going to end up having to play off the ball. And I think he could be great at playing off the ball. I just don't think he's a pass rusher.
Do you think TJ Watt is considered do you think TJ Watt is considered to be a really good player because of his last name? Because whenever I watched him play, I was never blown away. He kind of reminds me of Clay Matthews' younger brother. Like, he's kind of good.
Well, the thing is, he has the production too, which can kind of get tricky, because that's the same thing. It's like sacks in college can be so tricky because a lot of it's effort, where in the NFL it's a lot of talent based, right? Which is why I think I don't even really look at sack numbers, because sack numbers will lie to you, because a sack can happen 5 seconds into a play. That's not happening in the NFL, right?
Right.
You're not having these. You're not playing Nebraska, and Tommy Armstrong's not running around in the backfield on Sundays. But what I think does matter is tackles for losses, because tackles for losses, I've never seen a tackle for loss happen 5 seconds into a play. Like, if you're talking about explosion, traits like that, if you're trying to talk about a stat that'll quantify that, I think tackles for losses are a lot more important for college pass rushers than sacks. But like I said, Vince Biegel, he checks off the athletic benches, right? He's more productive on a per snap basis than his teammate, who's talked about as a potential first rounder, who basically, he's got a good head on his shoulders, everything. He translates better to the NFL than Watt, I think. He's definitely a guy who I could see playing off the ball, because I think he's only like 243 pounds, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I could see a role where he could play like as a Sam backer. But I really do think that he has potential as a pass rusher. If a team wants to go into like if they want 3 guys in 3-point stances and they want to have a drop down standing edge rusher, I think he could totally fit that role too.
So I got to know, Justis, before we let you go here, we talked about how every draft person has a guy. Who is your guy?
Oh man, I think it's DeShone Kizer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
DeShone Kizer, the truther.
Yeah, he's my quarterback, man. I'll ride with him. The thing is, if you watch DeShone Kizer, his accuracy is a bit of an issue, but it's not. I mean, people are trying to make it sound like he's Christian Hackenberg, and he's not that.
No, he's not.
What I mean? Like, he's not airballing those type of passes. When you watch him go through his progressions, he's never wrong. He is literally never wrong. You can say what you want about his accuracy down low, but he's never wrong about his progression. Like, you can watch Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson is kind of a gamer about it, right? Like, it seems like he legitimately does understand the construct of the offense, but he doesn't follow it all the time. Like, I could tell you that there's like several times in the Alabama game where he just he had the read to throw the inside slant on a double slant, and he just went outside because he just trusted Mike Williams and was just like, no, I'm just that's my go-to guy, so I'm just going to give him the ball. And you watch DeShone Kizer, he's basically a robot. You know what I mean? And I think that's really important in the NFL. You have to have process, because you're the difference between Mike Williams and your typical ACC receiver. You're never going to have that in the ACC cornerback. You're never going to have that in the NFL. I think DeShone Kizer is the most in the red zone. I trust him more than anyone else in this draft class. I think if you look at his best passes, people make it sound like he kind of fell off a lot this past year, and that's kind of like he's been more inconsistent, but he flashes every single game.
I mean, the whole Notre Dame team was just bad last year. I think people see their record, they see how bad the team was, and they think, oh, Kizer must have been bad. It was his fault. Right.
And the funny thing is, okay, so there's this narrative out. So I was a guy who I thought Kizer was going to be QB1 coming into the season too, right? Mm-hmm. When people were saying that he might not even be a starter, and I was like, you guys are ridiculous. You guys don't even understand what you guys are saying. And now the narrative is, what has Kizer? Kizer's not a winner. He's never won. Like, he didn't take a team to 10 wins in a Fiesta Bowl when he was a freshman. You know what I mean? Like, that team almost upset Clemson if it wasn't for like a little pick play, right? Mm-hmm. And then what was the other thing? I was spacing out for a second. So people are saying, he had a better year his freshman year than his sophomore year. My question is like, okay, well, like, he's mocked as like a potential first round, second round type of guy right now. Why wasn't anyone mocking him as a, there was literally no hype of DeShone Kizer outside of like 5 dudes who were actually watching these games on draft Twitter.
Yeah, he is. I don't understand how a Notre Dame quarterback just doesn't get a lot of press. Like, obviously he's getting attention because he will most likely be a first round pick, but now all of a sudden we're seeing like reports that Davis Webb might get drafted before him. Like, I don't get it.
Hey man, the NFL falls for that trick every year. Every year.
Davis Webb. Ugh. Blech. No way. No thank you. Disgusting.
No, see, my whole thing with DeShone Kizer, I coach high school ball, right? And I'm like, his issue is like underneath accuracy, but he can find where he needs to put the ball, and he makes amazing plays deep. And I'm like, if I've taught a 14-year-old how to polish up the issues that DeShone Kizer has that's keeping him away from being the first overall pick in this class, I'd take my chance at him.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that one. And you also just look at the other QBs in the draft. I mean, I don't like Mitch Trubinsky. I don't really, I'm obviously a big fan of Deshaun Watson, but I mean, after Kizer and Watson, maybe Mahomes from Texas Tech, maybe.
Yeah, see, Mahomes is a little. Yeah, I have Kizer and Watson are my top 2 tiers, and then I have Trubisky. Trubisky reminds me a lot of Cutler. I think that's pretty much what he's going to be. I'd like him a lot more if he were like paired up with a guy like Cooter or a guy like Gase, right? Mm-hmm. down in Miami, right. Where those guys basically they turned high variance quarterbacks and managed them on early downs, and then just kind of unleashed them on third down when they got off tempo. So I kind of like the idea there, but I mean, you can't really pick. I can't pick Trubisky's spot. I mean, I wish I could, but that's just not going to happen. And then Mahomes, I just don't like. I see all the talent, but like, he's not even close to like what Derek Carr was, and Derek Carr was a second round pick. So I don't know what the hell to do with that. Davis Webb, I'm not even sure he's draftable.
Davis Webb to me is the next Jake Locker. He's just going to be a guy that gets overdrafted. People put their hopes and dreams on him, and he's just bad.
Yeah, poor Cleveland.
Poor Cleveland. All right, Justis, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. Can't tell you what it's like for a fan to have both ends of Setting the Edge come on the Patriots Beat podcast. But thank you. Please keep it up. And I'll do it for you. Everyone go rate, review, and subscribe to Setting the Edge.
There we go.
I'll do a little press for you guys. Thanks for joining us, Justis. We really appreciate it.
Thanks very much, man.
Have a good one. Not all ingredients are created equal. Fresh, high-quality ingredients make a real difference, so it's important to know where your food comes from. I know that me personally, when I was living in a college dorm, I used Blue Apron in order to get my fresh ingredients so that me and my roommate Jack could cook up some nice meals, maybe some fresh steaks, maybe some good chili, some quality stuff. And it's also a very fun holiday gift, so maybe for a nice Valentine's Day gift or a nice birthday gift coming up, I wouldn't give it to a girlfriend. Obviously, Blue Apron would be a little rough, but give it to a family member. Maybe they can get some high-quality ingredients in their life. For less than $10 per meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. Blue Apron knows that when you cook with incredible ingredients, you make incredible meals, so they set the highest quality standards for their community of artisanal suppliers, family-run farms, fisheries, and ranchers. Whether it's Japanese ramen noodles, wild-caught Alaskan salmon, or heirloom tomatoes, Blue Apron is bringing you the best. So check out this week's menu. Get your first 3 meals free with free shipping. Go to blueapron.com/Patriots. You will love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So don't wait. That's blueapron.com/Patriots. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. All right, team, that's going to do it for this week's Patriot Beat podcast. Please remember to go give us a follow. Please give us a subscription rating and review on iTunes and Stitcher. You can find us on Twitter at CLNS Radio. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/CLNS fans. Thank you to Mike, Larry, and Nick. Thank you to High209 and Joshua Morse. And also thank you to Justis Mosqueda. Again, go follow his podcast, Setting the Edge. Go give it a rating, review, and a subscription as well. That's going to do it for me. Go find me on Twitter at CLNS_sports team. Please send me more puppy pictures, and please give me a couple questions. And if we get enough questions, we will do a mailbag next week. But that's it for me. Enjoy your weekends.